So it turns out one of the problems with marriages in modern days is love. Love is a thing. You can have more, you can have less. You have it sometimes, not other times. It's a thing. It's not a physical object, but it's something. And anything distracts you from each other. Because intimacy means just you. But when I say this to people, say, just you, they say, well, what about me? No, not about you, just you. Well, me for what? No, not for anything, just you. People can't relate to this. I suggested to a mother whose relationship with her teenage daughter was kind of cold and distant. I said, every time you go out to run an errand, ask your daughter to come with you. She said, for what? That's sad. I said, for nothing. For nothing. Just ask her to be with you, to come with you. She said, what will we talk about? Don't talk about anything. She said, then for what? This is sad. They're not comfortable with each other, but if they had something that they could talk about or something they could do, then they could get along. But without something, just the two of them, uncomfortable. You know, there's this thing, I saw it online. If you want to fall in love with somebody in 5 minutes, you see this thing? Sit across from each other, close. Stare into each other's eyes for 5 minutes, you will be in love. If you can do it. It is so difficult. Because there's nothing. There's just the two of you, and that is so. The truth is, you won't fall in love, but you will feel some strong breakthrough where you actually saw someone with nothing in between. It doesn't mean you have to love them, but it's a nice experience to actually see someone without filters, without. So, if you had asked your grandmother, what happens in the bedroom? What do people do in the bedroom? Your grandmother would have said, nothing. And you say, come on, you can tell me. I'm old enough, you can tell me. Your grandmother says, nothing. You say, fine, you don't want to tell me? She did tell you. Intimacy in the old world, before we became so sophisticated, intimacy meant just them and nothing else. Intimacy is not something you do. Intimacy is the result of a process of elimination. If you get everything else out of the way, you're intimate. If it's not about love, and it's not about money, and it's not even about sexual performance, then what are you doing with each other? Just being with each other. That's intimacy. And that is hard to achieve. Because there are so many things that can get in the way. Particularly when we're actually told that love is the main ingredient in a relationship. sexual pleasures, the main thing. What is the main ingredient in a relationship? You. Oh, forgot that part. So Tevye asks Golda, do you love me? And she says,
I suppose I do.
But first she sings this whole song about laundry and dishes and meals and, right? Says for 25 years, her answer is brilliant. And his question is childish. He asks her, do you love me, after 25 years of marriage, because his daughters are all getting married to the person they love. A new world, a new philosophy in life. So he gets to thinking, does my wife love me? So he goes and he asks her, do you love me? And that's why her first reaction is, what? What are you, a teenager? And then she says, you're asking whether I give you my love? For 25 years, I've given you myself. I've been yours for 25 years. Does that include my love? I guess, if you have me. But then having me is so much greater than love. Because love is a thing. Me, I'm not a thing. And then she adds or concludes, and if that's not love, what is? In other words, there's a much more significant meaning to love than the romantic teenage Hollywood slant on the subject. It's not exciting to be in love. It's exciting to have someone, not something. Our grandparents had that. They had each other. And they had very little of everything else. So they had no things. Their life was each other. Did they love each other? Did they what? Did they understand each other? Did they communicate well? Did they have all these talents that we work on? Probably not. But they had each other. And we have all these things, but we're not sure we have each other. So where does this notion come from? I gotta tell you something really beautiful. And you find it only in the Torah. God created the world. That's the first sentence in the Torah. In the beginning, God created heaven and earth. See, that makes no sense. He's God. Why would he create a world? If he's God, then he is perfect, he is complete, he is everything, he's almighty, all-powerful, all-knowing, infinite, eternal. What's he creating a world for? Doesn't make sense. If he is perfect, because he is God, then he doesn't need anything. So what's he creating the world for? The answer is, he didn't create the world for anything. He created the world for someone, not for something. Being perfect means I don't need anything. Because if I needed something, then I'm not perfect yet. When I'm perfect, I need nothing. But that's me. Where are you? So God creates the world because he needs someone. But isn't he already perfect? Why would he need someone if he's already perfect? And this basically is the key belief in Torah and Judaism since the revelation at Mount Sinai. When you're perfect, you don't need anything. But when you're perfect, you need someone. The more perfect you are, the more you need someone. Someone beside yourself. See, when you're not perfect, you have a job. Got to perfect yourself. If you're missing things, you're busy trying to get those things. But when you're not missing anything, because you're perfect, that's when you realize you need someone. And what does it mean to need someone? Not something from someone, because I don't need anything. I just need someone beside me. You see the humility in that? I am perfect, but it's just me. Only me? Not good. You have to exist too. And when you exist, what will I get? Nothing. But there will be you. That's called intimacy. I need you, not something from you, not something about you, just you. Because just me doesn't work. And there's no explanation. Why doesn't it work? So a man says to a woman, marry me. Please marry me. I can't live without you. That's a severely disturbed man. He needs therapy. Can't live without her? Then she needs a nurse. He needs a nurse, not a wife. Unless he's just saying it. Well, then he's not an honest guy. So if a man says to a woman, please marry me, I can live without you. He's an honest guy. But why would she marry him? So how does marriage work? If you need me, I'm not interested. If you don't need me, you're not interested. So how does this work? A really healthy marriage means, please marry me. I don't need anything from you. But without you, whatever I have is meaningless. Where do we get this crazy instinct from? You're perfect. You're missing nothing. You have everything a human being can possibly want. Why do you have to have another person interfere? It's like when this book came out, 1991, I think. The publisher asks for suggestions for a title, but they get to pick. So I suggested the title, a book on relationships. I suggested the title should be, Shut Up, I Love You. Because most of the problems, if not all, that occur in a relationship is, I love you. Is that not enough? Is that not everything? So I love you. But you have your opinions. Ruins everything. You have your personality, your opinions, stop it. Shut up and let me love you, and everybody will be happy. So if you can just turn off the personality, if I am perfect, means I need nothing from you. But without you, what is the point of being perfect? If you have no one to share it with, if there's no one other than you, what is your perfection worth? And where do we get this character trait? From God himself. This is what is unique about God, and he gave us this gift. He is absolutely perfect, and it's not good without us. So when God said it is not good for man alone to be, he was talking about himself. What's not good? Nothing, never mind. I just would like to have you. For what? For nothing. Oh, that's what you think of me? No. No, let's try this again. There is nothing more precious than you, not even the good things I get from you. Does that make a little sense? So here's what the bumper sticker should say. Nothing about your wife can be more important than your wife. Not even her love. Because love is something. So imagine a guy's running down the street. And you stop him and you say, what's the matter? Why are you running? He says, my wife isn't feeling well. I'm running to get the doctor. And you say, wow, you really love your wife. And he says, I didn't say anything about love. We don't get along so well. Would you then say, so why are you running? What's the rush? Slow down, we'll have a cup of coffee. He would say, you're crazy. My wife needs a doctor. And you say, but you don't love her. He would say, what's love got to do with it? She is my wife. I am her husband. Mine is so much more precious than love. Because only one is mine. I can love a lot of people. I should. This is what Golda was saying. Tevye is asking about love, and she's saying, you have me. I'm yours. You're mine. That's so much greater than love. And even with children, the popular theories, the more popular they are, the more you can be certain that they're wrong. Because what's true never becomes popular. Popular is like, there's something wrong with that. If everybody is saying the same thing, it's not true. Everybody is saying you must love your children unconditionally. Pop psychology. Your child is not happy, you don't love him enough. Oh, but I love him a lot. Well, love him more. Well, I did love him more. Love him even. The answer is always more love. And whatever problem exists, not enough love. If you think about it just for a minute, if you say to your child, I will love you, I do love you, unconditionally, the child feels rejected. Then he doesn't count. Because no matter what he does, how he behaves, how he turns out, you don't care. You're going to love him. Which means you're no longer paying attention to me. I just did something really hateful. You didn't even notice. So I'll do something a little more hateful. And I'm going to force you to notice. So unconditional love could be a very selfish thing. I don't want to keep shifting one emotion to another. It drains me. I'm just decided I'm going to love you, and that's all. And you can do whatever you want, and it's not going to change my mind. That is such a rejection. Love means a response to a person. If you're responding to the person, it can't always be love. Sometimes they're not lovable. So what is unconditional? Mine. You're mine. Unconditional. Because that's not a feeling, that's a fact. A fact can be unconditional. A fact is unconditional. But an emotion should always be an exchange of feelings, energies. So if the kid is being miserable, you got to react to that. You can't just have the same emotion all the time. It's not even healthy. So what does it mean, unconditional? I am yours and you are mine unconditionally. Which means I'm your father, I'm your mother, even when I hate you. That's unconditional. Now the child doesn't have to do anything to prove that you hate him. Because it's not going to make a difference. So, this is the wisdom of the Torah. Knowing us better than we know ourselves. The Torah says, in order to achieve intimacy, you have to be able to get all things out of the way. Therefore, you should not be intimate, physically intimate, with the lights on. Because if the lights are on, you're going to see something, and everything will distract you from intimacy, because intimacy is not a thing. You shouldn't be intimate if you're angry at each other, because the anger is coming between you. You shouldn't be intimate if you're a little high, if you had a few drinks. I don't mean drunk, just not completely focused. If you're not sober enough to drive, you're not sober enough to be intimate. There are 9 conditions in which you're not supposed to be intimate, because something is going to get in the way and it's not going to be a true intimacy. So it's really important that the bedroom be a sacred space. The bedroom should not allow anything, because that supports the relationship that is just each other together without anything. So a television in the bedroom, it ruins the entire vibe of the room. The bedroom is just for us, nothing else, nothing. A desk with a computer, a little work, last minute, not in the bedroom. So that when you close the door, intimacy begins. And now you have to go looking for something to ruin the intimacy. So there's this incredible story in the Talmud. There was a woman who had many children, and they were magnificent. Physically, spiritually, emotionally. They were just... The sages were curious, and they came and asked the woman, "What is your secret? How do you produce such incredible kids?" And they were assuming that it was nature, not just nurture. It's not only that they raised the kids right, these kids started off right. So she says, we are never intimate before 1 o'clock in the morning. And they said, that's your secret? She said, in our village, there is activity until 1 o'clock in the morning. After 1 o'clock in the morning, there's nothing. No one comes home late. There's no door opening, shutting. There's no horse and carriage. There's nothing. So there is no chance that a sound from the outside could distract us. Because anything can come between you. So here's the final point. Intimacy is the diametrical opposite of pornography. Pornography means it's about something. In fact, even you are a thing, right? Pornography means objectifying a human being. Intimacy means no thing. The human being is certainly not a thing. And between two human beings, you should permit no thing. So before intimacy, there has to be a quiet moment, a meeting of the mind, purposefulness, mindfulness. Now you're going to move beyond all things and just have each other. And that can never be bad. But when you start with things, you make people crazy. Like a long time ago, somebody said to me, when you go to sleep, do you put your beard under the blanket or above the blanket? Couldn't sleep. For weeks, I couldn't sleep. All of a sudden, it was like, no, maybe, no. I didn't know how to sleep anymore. You see what you do to a human being, to a married guy. You come to him and say, so are you getting, am I? I don't know. Uh-oh. That's it. My life just fell apart. You talk to a woman and you say, your husband really loves you? Oh, what's really love? How would I know? Well, I don't know. He doesn't love me. That's it. We're getting divorced. Whoa, nothing happened. But you plant that thing between two people and you kill it. You kill the relationship. And it can be very subtle. You walk past the magazine thing by the checkout counter in the supermarket, and it says 25 secrets to better sex, and you think, what? I don't know any secrets. Maybe I should buy the magazine. Yeah, but you bought one 3 months ago that said 25 secrets. How many secrets are there? But it makes you, it leaves you insecure. There are secrets I don't know about. So I'm getting cheated? You see how this, the conspiracy theory? No, you're right. You know, come to think of it, I really am not, I'm not getting the best sex in the world. Well, that means that she doesn't really love me. Oh, she's having an affair. You see what's going on here? And all because I saw that magazine. It's such poison. Nothing. There's nothing better. There's nothing greater. There's nothing you need more than to have each other. And if that's not love, then what is? So from now on, don't say, I love you. It's a nasty sentence. I want to say something about you, so I say, I love you. That was not about you, that's about me. I thought I would say something about you, but it didn't come out that way. I ended up saying, I love you, which is a description of me. And then what does a woman say when her husband says, I love you? I love you. You see, they're arguing already. If you think about it, you know how hard it is for a man to say, I love you. When the husband finally says, I love you, and the wife says, I love you, that is so nasty. He got to say 3 words about himself and you change the subject. It's literally like saying, okay, enough about you. Now I love you. See, this is not good communication. So I love you is really a very selfish statement. Any sentence that starts with the word I has got to be a selfish statement. Even if what I'm about to tell you is what I think of you. But it's what I think. It's what I feel. It's what I'm experiencing. So try this next time. I love a lot of people, and I've loved people who I now hate, and I've hated people that I now love. Love is negotiable. But you, I love. Not I love you. You, because you're mine. You I love. So Tevye says, I love you. Isn't that exciting? And Golda says, no. You I love. So who's the Chacham? Who's the more mature? Love is the appropriate emotion in a relationship with someone important. But love itself is not important. And we have to repeat this 1,000,000 times before people get that, because we've been so bombarded, so brainwashed with love worship. Love is not important. When someone is important, you should love them. Love God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might. Why? Because God is important. Love your fellow Jew unconditionally. Why? Because your fellow Jew is important. And if you hate him, he's still important. That's the difference. If someone is important and you hate him, he's still important. If someone is not important and you love him, he's still not important. Like chocolate. You love it, but it's not important. And no amount of love can make it important. So this is why the Torah tells us to use the mikveh. The mikveh is an amazing thing, and it has kept Jewish families and Jewish marriages sacred and powerful and indestructible for thousands of years. Mikveh has been around since there is a Jewish people, because it is such a powerful reminder, such a powerful expression of the fact that we don't take each other for granted. Physical intimacy is not something you own, not something you have rights to. It's always a privilege, never a right. You know that expression, familiarity breeds contempt? If you get too familiar with a person, you start to feel contempt. That's scary. Contempt. And you look at a couple who don't like each other, you've never seen anything so ugly. And they're both nice people. But with each other? So what is this familiarity that breeds contempt? Isn't familiarity a good thing? Everywhere except the bedroom. The bedroom has to be sacred. Intimacy has to be intentional, meaningful, respectful. It can't be just familiar. Because that's where the contempt comes in. If we lose respect for each other in the bedroom, it can turn very nasty. So the mikveh makes sure that that doesn't happen. And then it is literally true that when a husband and wife cleave to each other, they become one flesh, not one soul. To become one soul is easy. Souls get along. They don't have surface tension. But bodies have surface tension. So the experts are now admitting that they made a big mistake, and they've actually contributed to the ruin of marriages. The mistake was they put a lot of emphasis on maximum pleasure. Couples don't need more pleasure. We really don't. We need more closeness. That's what they're saying. Torah says closeness, that's for babies. What we need in marriage is oneness, which you get only in marriage. Closeness, it's a nice thing. Should be close with your neighbors. Not closeness. Oneness. Oneness means we're not a sandwich with something between us. It's just us. And if we have just us, what could be wrong? What could be better? Nothing. So we should get the bumper sticker. Nothing about your spouse can be more important than your spouse. So what do you think? Let me tell you about the video, the documentary. We worked on it for 7 years. The producer is from Caracas. We started when Caracas was still a normal country. Then it all fell apart. So I haven't seen him in years. He can't get out, I can't get in. It's a mess. But the movie took 7 years to make. And what we're trying to do, I'm not sure we succeeded completely, is to put intimacy into words that are universal, without using Hebrew, without focusing on mikveh, because not non-Jews don't have to go to the mikveh. We wanted it to be a universal thing. And what it is a definition of human intimacy, because we don't know what it is anymore. So we interview couples, there's some funny conversations on the streets with people, and it's a little, for an Orthodox, frum community, it's a little pushing the edge of good taste. But the writer, there were certain words that she wanted to use, and I said, no, we're trying to keep it modest. She says, this is the most modest thing I've ever produced. Don't worry about it, it's very modest. But some people will be uncomfortable with it. But it has to be said, and it has to be explained, and it has to be spoken of. And I hope that it'll make a difference in people's lives. Because we have to undo all the damage of every magazine and every book and every movie you ever read. Because they're all so poison. They're all so misleading.
I have a question. What would you say to someone who would argue that the theory of intimacy is utopian and unattainable?
He's right.
Repeat the question.
If somebody says, if that's the definition of intimacy, it is unattainable. It is unattainable. But don't tell anybody.
Can you feel love before? In other words, it seems to me that intimacy is a prerequisite for love. That until you're intimate with someone, you can't love them. And that love is really just a sideshow.
Yes.
At the end of the day.
Yes. It's an ingredient. It's not the relationship. I mean, you see all these movies and all these, a couple are being physical, and then he asks, so how was it? Is that not vulgar? How was it? It? Am I the it or you're the it? There was no it, there was just us. So you see how all of a sudden there is some thing between them? Physical intimacy is not a thing, it's us with nothing between us. Why bring a thing in and create a separation? When you have each other, that question doesn't exist.
The way you're talking about intimacy sounds like it's restricted to a husband and wife.
Yeah.
But can't you be intimate with a friend, with your children, with your parents?
Yeah. Emotionally.
Yes.
But not physically.
No, of course not.
Because the miracle of marriage is that the bodies become one. Yeah, you can be.
So you talked about, in order to be intimate, you have to be vulnerable. And so a lot of people who are married would like to be intimate. How do they become vulnerable?
That's a very good question. We all want intimacy, but we don't think we can afford to be vulnerable. We have to protect ourselves. But that's why it's hard to be intimate without marriage, because then you're completely vulnerable. Tomorrow you walk away. So there isn't even the security that marriage gives. And in the olden days, that was all the security you needed. Because if you got married, you were married.
Until you were widowed or widowed.
Right, but nobody walked away. Today, it's so fickle. Prenuptial agreements? What does that mean? It means chances of our getting divorced are very high. So why would I let myself be so vulnerable when you might not be here tomorrow? This is one of the things that we're taught.
Saying that doesn't make it, not being vulnerable, being defensive is easier to say it that way, can be a reflex. And so it's not easy to break the reflex. If I do this and my knee kicks up, it's going to kick up.
See, that's a very good description. Vulnerability is a natural component of a healthy human being. A reflex is a learned reaction. You learn not to trust because somebody lied. You don't have to learn to trust. You have to learn not to. So yeah, you have to learn to become defensive, which shows that there's already some interference. We're not being ourselves. So we're taught in yeshiva, the primary responsibility of a husband to his wife is to give her the security that will allow her to be completely vulnerable. Because if she's not completely vulnerable, she will ask you that question over and over again. Do I really have you? And you're going to say, what do you want? And she's going to say, never mind. Because if she can't completely trust and be vulnerable, it doesn't feel like a real relationship. So it's an all or nothing thing. If you can't be all vulnerable, then you're not vulnerable. But you can't be 99% reliable, because that means you're not reliable. So a husband has to provide absolute security. That's why in the Torah it says that when a man gets married, for the first year, he does not serve in the army, he does not go to work in civil job, he is free to his home to make his wife happy. How do you make your wife happy? With security. We have to provide that. Now again, in the olden days, the marriage provided that. If you stood under a chuppah and the rabbi made 7 brachas, whoa, you were married. Today, the marriage itself doesn't do it. We got to try a little harder. And that's why the degree to which you believe in marriage, to that degree you can allow yourself to be vulnerable. Now, outside of marriage, as I thought you were starting the question, can you become intimately bonded to a person outside of marriage? And the answer is yes, but then you're married. Then you are married. You just forgot to do the chuppah thing. But you are as bonded as any married couple, and if you ever separate, you're going to have the trauma of a divorce. Because when you experience a moment of real intimacy, you become connected at the hip. Even one time. So you might as well get married.
Shalom Aleichem. How are you? You know, I do a lot of talking, a lot of Zooming, many classes, many subjects. But that's all formal stuff. Hopefully good stuff, but formal. We also have a Wednesday night meeting that's more informal and kind of Hamish. If you want to join us for that kind of an event, interactive, time for questions and so on. If you want to join us for this side of conversation, click on the link below and join us every Wednesday night at 9 o'clock. Well, maybe not every Wednesday night, but we try to make it every Wednesday night at 9 o'clock, a more informal chat, which can be more enjoyable at times than the formal stuff. So check it out. Click on the link and join us. Try it. You'll like it.